notes right now.
Okay, and we should be live. So, as per normal, we're going to go ahead and do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Eternal Plains. My name's Blaze, and welcome back to World Builders, where we actually sit and talk about creating different worlds, different settings, and figuring out how we want to talk about stuff. Like the entire point of World Builders is to create worlds, discuss how worlds were created, discuss the different options, and also to have fun while doing it. Help people with D&D stuff, maybe even story writing stuff, all kinds of fun things, and really just get a grasp on everything. This is really starting to break. That's not good. So yeah, first off, let's get started with what we're doing tonight. So last week we were talking a bit about Astrangia, correct?
Correct.
So the idea is this week, by vote, we have decided that we are going to be doing Ozymistra, or to be more specific, a specific part of Ozymistra. And that particular part is actually your hometown, Demon, or as close to hometown as we're going to get, really.
Yeah.
So, right now in the background, I have RuneScape Dragon Wilds going, because it's actually a pretty good game, if I'm being completely honest, despite the fact that, yes, it is RuneScape. Like, it is the upgraded version of RuneScape. Who would have thought that they would come out with a better product? So, there we go. And create a world. We're going to create Play with Friends, and it is going to be called Peanut Empire. Yeah, I was worried about that, so I will just do this real quick.
So I can get in, but as with the last time you had me try, the screen aspect ratio does not let me do anything.
No stress. Okay,
Sorry.
so we're going to be talking a bit about the dump. So before we could talk about the dump some more, and we'll hopefully by the end of the night have a better name for said place. But for the time being, the dump works.
Call it the conflux, because it's where everything gets thrown to.
Well, that's just it. This isn't the only place. It's one of a couple of different places, honestly. But that's where we need to have this discussion. So, Demon, since this is based on your character, that is something important that we need to kind of talk about and put forward. So I'm going to Alt-tab real quick, and I don't know why I Alt-tabbed. I'm literally switching to a different computer entirely when I do this. We have player journals, but I don't think that's where your thing is. No, yours isn't in player journal. I'm trying to remember where...
It's in lore? No. Yeah, it's in player journals. No.
Was it in player journals?
Where are people from?
Yeah, that's where I thought it would be as well, but yours is very minute there. You wrote me this entire glorious backstory, and I don't remember where it is.
You delete my book? How dare you?
I did not delete your book. That's the thing. Like, I did not delete your book. Maybe it's on your character sheet.
I don't think it would be.
Ironically, you would think it would have been in your biography. It is not. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind finding that for me, Demon, because I know it exists. There's the key point there, is it exists.
There we go. It's in player stories. It's you have to open up the tab for player stories, because if you look at player stories and it shows a world by layers and where people are from, you still have to open player stories because the folder's closed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were looking at world by layers and all that, thinking that was player stories. That.
Nope.
Yeah, that.
Gotta open it.
Okay, so what I can actually do is, I believe I sent this to Peaches last week, the server link. Oh boy, that's a bit high up. Okay, a week from today would have been the 13th. Okay, too far. Do. Okay.
Bro, I made the first year fucking dark.
Yes, you did. But that's the important thing. So, this is one of those weird situations where we actually are going to touch on something that is... Oh, I actually need to make this available for my other computer. So I need to go into here, configure ownership.
Sorry, I had to turn my fan off. It's too loud.
And save changes. There we go.
You're ruining my book. I can't write it anymore.
You should be able to. All right.
There we go. I can see
So, what we're going to do is we're actually going to spend this week expanding on a world, specifically Cendria's. And this is a big thing because we really need to kind of discuss how this process is going to go and what's going on. Now, I confess that, yes, I do have a game going up that I'm basically just throwing out something for the viewers to watch. But I'm going to try not to make it my focus, which is the big thing. I want to make sure that we try our best to focus on the world as best we can. So, Cendria, we have the first years, the middle times, Into a New Age, and As We Are Now. Now, I don't
I'm still working on Into the New Age.
Huh?
I'm still working into 3 and 4 right now. Because Into the New Age is basically my escape. I haven't written that, and then As We Are Now is basically meeting up with the crew and my continued story.
Fair. Keep in mind that we can actually flesh that out together, me, you, and Sasquatch. It would have been nice to have Tri here. Sadly, Tri will not be joining us today. But we can actually spend some time, get that together, and figure out all this. So let's start with the first years. Where do we go? Mother and father were adamant about moving here, but rarely I see them. After that, man gave them a small pouch of jingles and rocks. So we can easily emphasize that this is a young Cendria going, oh, well, they got these nice things, and you know, now we're here. It's been a few weeks. I hate it here. I can't understand that man and why he beats me with fervor. Fervor is a pretty big word for a child. I want to point that out. Like, if there's anything I ever say that is maybe a little bit dickish, it's fervor. Fervor is a very adult word.
Would you prefer if I said incessancy?
That's also a big word.
With gusto?
That's also a big word.
What the fuck you want me to say then? He beats me constantly.
There you go.
Bro, I feel like as I'm writing this, I want to use more...
Big words? No.
Not really big words per se, but more antiquated words that give more meaning to the words, because beat me constantly can be a multiple of things. Beats me with fervor adds, like, weight to what he's doing.
Oh no, absolutely. And I agree. But that's just it. You've gotta... So, when you're writing characters, Demon, and once again, this plays into the stream, so this is something that we can actually sit here and discuss, right? When you're writing young characters, it becomes imperative that you have to write simple. And that can be so difficult because you want to do otherwise, right? You want to use these big words. You want to exclaim certain things and really press upon them. It's the same reason why we use curse words, right? When we say, "Oh, look at him, he's a fucking asshole," right? We're not using that word as just to use it. We're trying to emphasize something, and the thing we're trying to emphasize is he's an asshole, right? We're emphasizing quite literally the word asshole. But in this particular case, right, we need to actually take a step back and go, okay, well, how would a child think about this? Well, a child's not going to think much of it, actually. If anything, a child's more likely to not be able to use those big words. This isn't me saying you need to throw an accent on it either, because if anything, an accent might be a bit much. But yeah, he beats me constantly. He beats me hardly. Not hardly as in barely ever, but like hard. But once again, you're trying to take it from a child's perspective, right? Now, as you get older, by all means, use a bigger, stronger, use a biglier word,
More gooder.
A more gooder word, yeah. But yeah, this is one of those moments where I'm not gonna tell you to go back and change it because it's already written, and honestly, it's probably better to leave it for now until we get a bit deeper in. So this is one of those moments where we could actually call it a rough draft, and no one's gonna question it because it makes sense.
I mean, it'd be one thing if I was going like an actual like full-on writing style, as in writing it paragraph by paragraph. But here I am just trying to assail it into a few bullet points for continuity's sake, as in like the progress of time.
Yeah, you're
going
not
from
looking
bullet point to bullet point is so bullet point to bullet point is spanning like months at a time, maybe months to years between each.
Yeah, you're not writing
bullet point.
You're not writing a appropriate journal. You're writing a here's my thought process.
I'm writing a dear diary, basically.
Yeah, and very rough.
Dear diary, it has been a few weeks. I hate it here.
Pretty much, yeah. But yeah, just kind of a, I guess, for future reference situation. Because I have definitely fallen into that trap myself, where I've tried to use big words and then gone back and went, wait, this is a child. A child's not gonna know that word.
I mean, you'd be surprised with children these days.
Oh, no. A child may use a big word, but they don't know what the word means. Like, they're taking
in
a
a sense,
shot
you
in the
could
dark.
say that's why I'm using the word here. I don't know what it means, but I know it means something big. You could use it as that.
We can maybe get away with that. we can maybe get away with that, but that might still be a bit of a push. But once again, a for future reference kind of situation, because for readers, viewers, for whoever's getting a hold of the information, right? Me as your DM, I care less, okay? But me as a writer, I'm going, well, child would never use that word, because a child hopefully has never heard, you know, such big words used around them. With any luck, an adult tries their best to say things that the child will understand or will attempt to comprehend. Because no offense, if you are using, you know, 14 syllable words around your like 3-4-year-old, either A, you're trying to sound smart around a child because you don't actually feel smart other ways, or
you're
B,
trying to teach the child big words so they learn quicker.
It would be one thing, but I would say that is such a small majority trying to teach a child. I'd almost more say you're not thinking about the child. Like, you're not even considering their age, which honestly is probably more often than not. I think when people use big words like that, they aren't actually thinking of, oh, well, this is a child. They're thinking of, oh, well, this is another person in the room, right? It is until afterwards that they go, wait, hold on. I'm not talking to a 30-some-odd-year-old or 20-some-odd-year-old. I'm talking to, like, a 4-year-old. They don't know what the hell I'm saying. And maybe that's part of, you know, like, growing into being a proper parent, is learning what your child can and can't do. But I digress. Anyways, he beats me with fervor. I do understand one word at least. Bara was kind enough to tell me properly. Or property.
Bara was kind enough to tell me property.
Yeah. So, property is a big thing in this. Oh, the smell is horrible. I can barely get a moment's rest before it assails me. The stench of sulfur, rotting flesh, putrid filth, and occasional smell of cooking flesh. So, well, once again, maybe an overuse of big words. Instead of putrid filth, filth is a word I think children would know. Because I could totally see like a 5-year-old, 6-year-old girl going, ew, it's filthy. Putrid, though, is once again one of those really big words. I can definitely see the word nasty. Stinky. Yeah, there's definitely options there. There's a lot of options. But once again, putrid, little over the head, but it definitely gets the word across to a reader who's a little bit more knowledgeable. Like, putrid's definitely one of those words. It's like, oh, I know exactly what they're saying when they're saying putrid. That's disgusting. Why would you? Ew. Okay, so, the man comes around less and less as long as I farm the molded dirt and crass rocks? Crass
isn't like shiny rocks, or like they're multifaceted in a sense. Like, basically he's having us farm the gravity crystals. I don't know what those are. So I just do crass rocks.
In this particular case, shiny rocks works. You know, shiny rocks would have been a good one. Because in this case, I wasn't entirely sure what you meant by crass rocks. But shiny rocks makes a lot of sense real quick.
Well, they're not really shiny because they're covered in dirt. They have a more of like a mottled hue to them.
I think I would still call them shiny, ironically, despite that. But that's me personally. But interesting phrasing there. It definitely works because it raises questions. Uses the stick and chain less. I miss Mother, but Bara has been filling the void for now. She feeds me the good scraps she finds, but I do see her coughing more often. So, the fact that your character says good scraps does emphasize something important, which is these people are literally living off of scraps. They are living off of what they find day to day. They are trying to just survive. They are trying to just live. Which, that's something that I'm not sure entirely what people would think of, right? Like, the fact that some people just want to live and are willing to do all kinds of things. Also the idea of good scraps, okay? Just for context, this actually has nothing to do with your writing style on this one. Just for context, what would you consider the good scraps?
Basically anything that wasn't covered in mold, didn't have a funny smell to it, looked at least palatable.
So it looked good, it tasted good, it wasn't nasty.
If it... I was gonna go into the Emperor's Song by that one. Music, it feels good, tastes good, it must be mine.
God.
I digress.
No, it's fine. Once again,
no.
we're trying to flush out certain characteristics. So,
and keep in mind that the reason I say it's like she feeds me the good scraps, but you know, she's basically losing her own vitality is because good scraps are hard to come by. So it's like it's far and few between when you find a good scrap.
I get you.
So, good scraps are basically like getting a piece of chocolate cake after eating nothing but dirt all day.
Yeah. But once again, it's something that we kind of want to talk about, like what defines the good scraps. While we can infer some stuff, that this is a part of your story, so we need to actually have that discussion, right? What defines the good scraps? What are the bad scraps? What are things that people would like? What are things that people wouldn't like? And that can raise a lot of different questions. And we are talking about a place where we're calling it the dump, the junkyard, whatever we really want to, because that's exactly what it is. It's a place where trash has collected. Okay. How many years has it been? Time feels off here. We go down to the mines and work for days at a time, and when we return, hardly any time has moved since we entered. So there's another fun question. Is time actually flying, or is time like, does it feel like they're doing all this work in like moments?
Basically, think of it like the reverse water planet from what's that one movie, where instead of time like going like it was only an hour there, but 10 years has passed outside. Instead, it's the reverse. 10 years can pass inside the mine, and only 1 hour will have passed outside. It's kind of like getting too close to.
Time chamber?
Not like a hyperbolic time chamber, but like.
So
in a sense, like time dilation in regards to. Like,
I was gonna say. So here's a question, okay, and I say this to both of you collectively. We know oscillators are a thing, and oscillators very much mess with the world around them by augmenting through alchemical means, right?
Oscillators are basically powered by the gravity crystals, and basically what we're entering is a gravity crystal mine.
Well, no. I was going to. You are correct, but I was gonna say, would it be too out of place to say that if they placed a bunch of, because let me, I want to double check something, so I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna type in Yeah, Quicksilver Mutagen, which is an alchemical thing that you can do as an alchemist in this game, right? So if I click Quicksilver Mutagen Greater, you gain a +3 item bonus to acrobatics checks, stealth checks, thievery checks, reflex checks, dexterity-based attack rolls, and you gain a +15-foot status bonus to your speed. Literally, you move 15 feet farther. God, I wish one of you guys actually rolled an alchemist. You have no idea. Drawback, you take damage equal to twice your level and can't recover your hit points lost this way by any means while the mutation lasts. You take a -2 penalty to fortitude saves. Okay, you might as well be drunk, right? But on top of that, you take 2 times your level's worth in permanent damage until the mutagen is gone. So if you're level 8, right, you take 16 permanent health damage until the potion wears off. So that it's a pretty steep downside. But if you're working as a miner, I don't think that they care. Why would they? You're some schmuck they sent down into a hole to get stuff. But you're talking that you would literally be moving faster, quicker, more, more agile, literally just plowing through rock after rock after rock after rock, right? I would say that this would definitely fit the description of you went down there, you came back, no time had passed, but at the same time, you've got, these workers who are obviously working hard, they're tired. For them, it's like, time has been moving normally, but for everybody else around them, like people who are outside the mines, they're almost like this blur, right? You might see them coming in and out of the cave, but they're just like this short little, zip in, zip out kind of situation. Because you have this oscillator that's already, like, supercharging them. By the way, Demon, if you can't tell, this is me saying that if this is a thing that's in those mines, it's stealable.
Who's to say I didn't steal it when I left?
Because you don't have it on your character. I'm not letting you wreck on that shit.
Who's to say I didn't sell it to get passage?
Oh, that would be interesting. Though, considering that you barely were able to make passage, that means whoever you sold it to ripped you off so fucking hard.
I don't know the value of money. I just see things that are shiny and trade it for shiny.
Well, that's the way you were. I think you understand value now, but you've also got friends who are helping you with that.
Yeah. But basically, all I know is, this is shiny, I must have shiny, trade shiny for shiny, because shiny is good.
Which would make sense, but what do you think, Sasquatch? Do you think that fits the narrative here?
Yeah, and we can turn that into an environmental effect for mechanical purposes.
Yep, this is true. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind putting down a note, be it on paper or whatever.
I take notes for all these episodes, yes.
Oh, I am so grateful for that. You have no idea. For the record, it is Quicksilver Mutagen Greater. Just so that we have the exact notation of which item it is and everything else, so I can actually make the oscillator for it. Because one of the things that we do need to make note of is oscillators in Azzy-Mistra are very much basically super potions or effects that have been attached to a gravity crystal. What's up, Demon? I guess he wouldn't be right back. But using that, basic mentality, this means that technically any potion in the game can be turned into an oscillator. Invisibility, fire resistance, healing, all of them are transmutable into an oscillator theoretically. But this also means that, give or take, there's also going to be different variants of different stuff in every which way. Okay, so now that we've semi-established that, welcome back. So yeah, if we're in agreement on that, like there were probably oscillators that were like activated and then just left hanging in these mine shafts. It also makes sense because you said barely any time had passed, right?
Yeah. Hardly any time had moved since we've entered.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do know about oscillators is that they do have a pretty straightforward limit, right? Like they can only work so many times before they go into overload. If these guys were pressing them until just before overload and then letting them recharge over the course of the rest of the day, that would also make sense and once again fit both the narrative of the story for both your end and my end. So, how's that sound for an agreement on all ends?
That works.
Sounds doable.
Okay. Because once again, Demon, I'm not trying to override your story too much, even though you've given me some free room to. I want to make sure that everybody is at least semi-happy, because I do believe in player agency, but it's also one where we need to also kind of discuss stuff from a story point of view as well, as to, does this fit the actual game? Like, would we be able to do this mechanically? Which, the number of times mechanics get in the way of story and story gets in the way of mechanics is way too often. I think we can agree with that. Also, God, I wish I had someone to play this game with, but it is what it is. It's another silly little survival game, and I picked it up because RuneScape, but whatever. Anyways. Okay, so, Bara passed away the other day, and I couldn't stop crying. Master gave me time to grieve, at least. Gave her a proper burial in the Burning Lands. So, what are the Burning Lands? This seems like an important thing.
You have the trash.
Yep.
Then there was an issue like long past before even I first got there, where somebody tried burning some of the trash and it got out of hand and it basically created a hot pile underneath the mass. Okay. And so people just send things to either be burned if they're useless there or to give somebody a burial if need be.
So basically the Burning Lands are a trash fire that's never quite gone out, so now people just use it because they don't know what else to do.
Yep, more or less.
Okay.
Okay, that gives ideas, yeah.
So somewhere in this trash pile are, quote-unquote, the Burning Lands, which, for all intents and purposes, are meant to be both a mixture of disposal as well as just a natural hazard.
A natural hazard, but it's also constantly expanding because the more trash it burns, the wider the Burning Lands get. So technically, they're trying to stop it, but they're not actually trying to stop it because they're just like, you know, we don't care. Just let the thing burn.
Basically,
we'll just move the trash city if we need to.
It's a contained disaster, is what it would be. It'd be like the equivalent of, I guess, the volcano over in Hawaii, right? Because you don't want that lava to spread to like nearby villages or towns, but you also don't quite just want to stop the volcano. Like, that would be...
I mean, we could use it as more like, say, so remember that one city that used to be a mining town?
Centralia, yeah.
That somebody started to fire in the mine by accident, and it just has been burning constantly.
Yeah.
But they had to evacuate the town because of potential hazards. That's basically the Burning Lands in that case.
That's fair.
I literally just made that note before you said something.
But once again, it works, and it having a contained, for lack of a better term, contained disaster, a contained burning trash pile is actually kind of cool. I actually really enjoy that idea because it gives, once again, more options for stuff. So yeah, and that let's read this last passage from the early or from the first years, and then we can actually start to discuss some other stuff. So, I can I've discovered I can climb walls without finding handholds like the other workers. Master has given me the task of getting the better crass rocks from the vaulted sky where other workers have issues. The extra shiny brass he gives me to add to my collection is nice. So he is actually paying you, which is something else to be important. So, once again, I would like to reiterate this idea of dubbing these masters trash lords. So let's actually have a discussion for this world building, right, as to what defines a trash lord. Now, we call the guy who's in charge of this area the trash baron, right? And as we've already discussed, a baron basically holds village over an area, so more or less an island. So the trash baron has control over the island. What would a trash lord hold control over? I think giving him an entire layer might be a bit much, because we mentioned before that the trash pile has different layers, correct?
Yeah, basically, the lower the layer, the more compact the trash is. Basically, the more chances of you dying are. Whereas the higher the level is, the less likely the trash is going to compact on top of you. Basically, as long as there's constantly trash falling on you, there's constantly going to be new layers forming. And eventually the lower layers will eventually all degrade and collapse anyway.
Yeah, so quite literally, the higher you live, the better
conditions.
The better living conditions and life opportunities you have. Whereas the lower you are, you're less likely to get anywhere. So we're going to say that lords, right? You probably get more lords in the lower levels, but those lords also... I'm trying to think of a hierarchy here that actually works. So, I guess here's where we actually need to start. So, let's start at the top and we'll work our way down and go from there. Because maybe I'm putting trash lords too far down instead of higher up. So...
think of it as like a mob boss, in a sense.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying, because you have your mob boss, but then you've got your team leads and stuff like that, right? Because you need one or two guys who are going to run groups of people who are then eventually led up to the mob boss and all that, right? So,
yeah.
Here's the way I'm thinking. We're going to have our trash baron, okay? And I'm actually going to pull up a piece of paper here and a pen so I can actually write this down. So, we have our trash baron, okay? So below the trash baron, we're going to actually put the trash lords, okay? So the only people that the trash lords have to answer to is the baron, right? So these guys can fight amongst each other, these guys can kill each other, it's not a big deal. The only person that they actually have to give fealty to is the trash baron. Okay. So, who works under these lords? Because these lords are obviously going to have their own shops, they're going to have their own wares, they're going to have their own people. Who works under these trash lords? Who basically, if they screw up, these trash lords are going to come down on them? Because I'm thinking maybe 2 or 3 layers down from this, we have the slave masters. And the slave masters should be kind of obvious. Those are the guys who are probably running people like Centria and the rest of them into the ground. Right? So, something above the slave masters. Okay, so we've got two layers
the slave
between...
masters, the enforcers, the lords, and then the barons.
Below the lords, let's do the enforcer. Who is below the enforcer but above the slave master? I figure having a 5 tier is perfectly fine for this kind of situation, but we need something below the enforcer and slave master.
I think that like slave master, the enforcer basically is observing what the slave masters are doing.
Well, no,
the lords.
Well, no, because I want someone above the slave master because the slave master can't be free. There's the catch-22 is the slave master must also be a slave. And I know that sounds like a real dick move, but that's probably the best way we can do that. So, who do we want in between the enforcers and the slave masters?
How dark do you want to get?
Ooh, how about the guild?
Camp enforcers?
No. So here's the reason why I say the guild, right? The guild would probably be the people who interact the most with the outside world, right? They would keep the slave masters in check, but they would also like make sure that the enforcers aren't just bearing down on the slave masters. So they're kind of in this weird position of both a mixture of authority, but also like subservience. Because if the enforcer comes down and goes, "Hey, I need you to do me a job," the guild doesn't really get to say yes or no. They have to conform. How's that sound?
Sounds appropriate.
Because by having this guild, right, we also stabilize the idea that the enforcers are separate from the outside world, so the enforcers are not known to the normal people. Neither would the Baron or even the Trash Lords be seen by the normal public outside of those who obviously live there. So it would be stuff that Zon-Krok has no idea what the Trash Lord is. Zon-Krok would have no idea what the Trash Baron is. But he would definitely know what the guild is, right? The guild is easily the representative there. And while the guild isn't always on the up and up about stuff, that's just normal. You know, they obviously have people who run these errands, right? That would be, well, once again, normal. So yeah, I think that's a good way of doing it, providing you guys agree to that concept. So we have the Baron, the Lord, the Enforcer, and then below the Enforcer is the Guild. And then below the Guild we have the Slave Master, and then the Slave Masters, as we've already stated, are perfectly fine paying people, so they would have access to both slaves and civilians. So, I guess here comes the next big question, right? What is the difference between a slave and a civilian? Can a slave become a civilian? Because it sounds like Syndria became a civilian, right?
Basically, in the sense of however much was paid to basically buy you away from whoever was selling you, you have to earn at least like 10 times that worth that they sold you for.
So there's a I'm trying to think of the best way to word what I'm trying to say. There's a head price, basically. So you have to pay your head price, your
Basically, think of like buying out a consort. Like you can pay for the consort services, then that goes to like the head person's whatnot, or you can buy out the consort and complete by paying like so much excess on top of that head price.
Yeah, the question is what do we want to call that? So there's the $1 million question, because we want to add a word to that. Do we want to call that a bond right or something like that? Basically, we're looking for a word that makes sense, that says what the price is for a slave to buy out of slavery. Because remember, this is something that can be unanimous throughout the world. This could just be a universal truth in this world. We have that opportunity to define that right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to just call it bonds. Like you buy your own bonds or something like that, because that feels a little bit too on the nose.
The chain price.
Once again, feels a little too on the nose.
Well, you're basically talking about slavery in the sense of it has to be on the nose to go in concise, because you can't just
It doesn't though.
Pad foot around it.
It doesn't. This is actually one of those weird moments where we have a weird opportunity to do something maybe a little bit more. Do we just want to make up a weird word for this?
The bargain rate.
Bargain rate sounds like something entirely different.
You don't want to be on the nose about it, do you? You're basically buying out your own bond after so long of like getting enough value for it. You're basically bargaining your own life by working towards it.
How about Bira?
Sounds too close to the character Bara.
Oh shit, you're right.
It's like having a twin sister, Bara and Bira.
Well, I was thinking Bira because it's the idea of buyout rate. So Bira. So I'm trying to combine words in such a way that it gets that fantasy feel, but also what's up?
The rate of buyout, Rabir.
Rabir. I'm okay with that. So raw beard. So I've got RAH, comma BERE.
I think more like BYRR, Rabir.
BYRR. Yeah, no, that works.
The buyout rate of reconciliation. So basically, you're reconciling your own tab.
You really are, but it's also one where the fact that that's a potential universal truth in this land says volumes, because that also means that this is a term that like people like Zon Krok or
Sindria currently with fucking San Yolo, because he had to basically get her into a bargain again.
Yeah, San Yolo probably doesn't know that
San
term,
Yolo.
but Sindria most definitely would.
That's why I was so adamant against trying to get into a fucking thing like that, because, screw use. I ain't gonna fucking sell my soul again.
Yeah, no joke.
I already had to go through that shit.
But once again, this is something that works, and once again, this is a term that we can bring up, right? That San Yolo's not gonna know. Is it potentially important to his character? Oh, absolutely. But he's not gonna know it because he's never been in this situation before. Or at least not in the same way that Syndria has.
Well, technically, he's in the situation with me right now, where we basically have to make money and send it back to the one guild, controlled by the one devil guy, because Saniolo had to bring me in because I was running my one little Ponzi thing.
Yeah,
and he basically got me caught up in basically indentured servitude again.
Yeah. Well, once again, we've openly stated that these characters are kind of dumb. Like, specifically, Syndria and Saniolo are both a little bit on the simpler side.
No, I did not want to do the deal with the devil guy.
Oh, no, you didn't want to. You didn't want to. I'm saying your character tends to be a bit on the simpler end. But simple does not... I guess saying dumb was the wrong word. Simple does not equal dumb. You don't understand certain concepts. Saniolo doesn't understand certain concepts. For Saniolo, this is just another day in boonies. Because of course it is.
For me, it's basically serving my life all over again.
Yeah, for you, it's a very different situation. It's very much a situation that you did not want to be part of.
Here we are.
All over again. Yeah. Double check my chat, make sure no one's actually said anything important that I need to keep up with.
I have the stream up right now, no one's saying anything.
I appreciate that. But yeah, for Syndria, it's definitely a bigger deal than it is for Saniolo, for obvious reasons. But once again, he's used to being... We're gonna call Saniolo more of a debtor. He's used to being in debt and paying off his debts. And it's very rare that he does not pay off his debts. He is sadly one of those
now
people.
In a sense, he's basically paying off my debt in a sense.
Yeah, which he's probably not happy about, but once again, he's used to the tick for a tat thing, you know? The idea of, oh, well, it's just more debt. We'll be fine. We'll be able to pay this off.
With how he worded it, we're never going to pay off the debt.
Oh, yeah, no, because that's how the mob gets you. It's the idea of you're always in debt. Why would, anything ever change with that? But yeah, he's used to... He's basically a slave without being a slave. He just doesn't understand.
He's an unknowing slave.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which is how the mob gets you. They basically make you an unknowing slave because you think you're paying off your debt to the mob, but you haven't actually paid it off. And then when you can't pay it off, they come and collect you.
Yep.
And make you pay off the debt in other ways.
Yep. That's pretty much it to a T. You've nailed it in one. But he wouldn't know that. He wouldn't understand that. Why would he? To him, it's just another day in life. To him, it's normal.
Just another day on the beach.
Yeah, pretty much.
But for me, it's fuck. Here we go again.
Well, yeah, because you paid your way out of servitude. For you, this is being pushed back into something you didn't want to, which is a big thing.
Part of why I also hold so much animosity against him as well, as a character.
Oh, absolutely. And if anything, I'm perfectly fine with that idea, because it builds character growth. It changes how each of you guys views one another, which is important for me as the DM because it helps drive the story along. Okay, so we've got our hierarchy here, which is the Trash Baron, Trash Lord, Enforcer, the Guild, who deals with the outside as well as the internals, right? The Slave Masters... the Slave Masters, who control both the slaves and the civilians. So for civilians, you've got to write up a contract, right?
And that contract is enforced through the guild.
The contract is enforced through the guild, but goes back through the slave masters. So the slave masters, no matter what, have to report to the guild, But if you're dealing with a slave, they can keep maybe a little bit more of the cash, which, you know, obviously incentivizes them to use slaves. But if you're using a contractor, you're gonna lose some of that profit, but chances are, if they bought their way out of slavery and didn't just die out, they're probably worth the coin. They're what would equate to a trained workforce.
You're no longer minimum wage, you're just above it.
Pretty much, yeah.
You finally got your associate's degree.
But that's probably the best way we can use to look at this. Okay, and then obviously, we've got Rabir, which is the task of buying out your own bondage. So it's literally the repaying of debt, which, as we just stated, is kind of important because you don't want to stay a slave. You want to get out of that. You want to avoid that if you can. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that we've got this kind of setup already, honestly, in my opinion, is a good thing. Okay, and we'll let's get a little bit more into this. So let's go into the middle times, and then we'll go from there. And once again, this is also going to help later because we're going to, like I said, kind of go into the idea of, I'm trying to think of my words here. We're going to be writing a journal, right? And when we write the journal, we want to make sure that the journal is as close as possible to what we've put down here, right? So, now, having said that, let's read through this real quick and try to get a basic idea of what we're dealing with here. I finally have saved up enough silver crass to afford a decent carve in the pile. So a carve would be the equivalency of a home.
Yeah.
Okay, that's important to know. It is a home for me at least. So the people down there are going to call homes carves. Like, here's my carve and where I live.
Yeah, basically you've carved out a chunk of the pile, and you use it as your basically your base of operations of your home.
It's your own little place to be. You've probably put up a couple of like wooden beams. You've probably put some tarps over the trash piles to the front and back of you. It's the idea of you've got
like being homeless in LA. You got the tent city.
Pretty much, yeah. Which to me, right, as a concept designer, this would be the idea that maybe the top of the trash pile isn't actually as much trash as it is almost bungalows that have been built on top of the trash pile. So you have basically, it starts off as a trash pile, which is where all the normal civvies and regular people live. But if you're either able to A, save up enough money or whatever, you actually start to get into like weird shanty towns and stuff like that as you get farther up the pile. So maybe like the top of the trash pile is actually like carved off, but it also has like corrugated metal or tarps or whatever to try and like keep trash from just like collapsing on your house and divert it farther down the pile. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking that a little bit, but I think it's a fun idea. Okay. Let's see. I have been accused of keeping crash rocks by another worker. Master won't listen to my pleas as I was dragged to the peat mines. The wretched lands married with orange glow and soot covered everything. At least... Oh, apparently I can't break that. At least I can keep the solace of my carb every night. So, obviously, if you're accused of something, you basically pay a penance. There is a law system down here. Granted, that law system is probably done through the slave owners. The enforcers at the top end, but probably the slave owners on the lower end. And then the guilds...
I'm more towards the middle side now that I can afford a decent carve.
Yeah, that's true. So if you're affording a decent carve, so you're not in the shanty town. Like, you can't afford the shanty town. But
I'm just below the shanty town, like, high up.
Yeah, you're obviously dealing with the guild and all that. So yeah, if it's going through the guild, it would probably be, like, going back to my notes here, it'd probably be the slave master getting a hold of the guild. The guild calls the enforcer, because the guild's not going to get its hands dirty. Why would it? Right?
Yeah.
You're asking a bit much of the guild if you're expecting them to get their hands dirty in anything. Oh, my fucking nose, man. So the enforcers basically came down when you tried to explain yourself to your master, aka the slave master. The slave master is like, no. This guy obviously outranks me by way too much. I'm not gonna stand up and defend you. Otherwise, it's gonna be my ass if this comes through. So, yeah, you're just kind of fucked. And I would imagine the enforcers are probably corrupt to the bone, too.
Most definitely.
Aside from the Baron himself, who is obviously, like, weaseling as much as he can out of everything, the enforcers are probably skimming where they can, probably taking where they can. Chances are the Baron's probably answering to somebody as well, but he probably
has more leeway.
He probably answers to other nobility. Like, he might have to answer to someone who might be, like, in the shadows above the trash pile who threatens his very existence.
Or another Baron that's on another trash pile, and they're trying to...
Well, no, not even another trash pile. Probably, So this is where we would start getting into world politics. So this would be the occasion where the guild doesn't get control because so-and-so shows up, and they are immediately seen towards the Baron. And the Baron, for whatever reason, right, doesn't get the opportunity to say no because the Baron either owes them a debt, or, worse yet, they have some kind of hold on his life. Like, maybe something literally has a hold on him to the point to where he has to go, listen, if I don't pay up, I'm dead. I will literally die.
Make it easy on ourselves. Do we want to have a similar situation for the Baron that we do for Dewey?
Demon doesn't know about Dewey.
I don't know shit.
Yeah, I'm as much as I would love to continue that train of thought.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah, we gotta move on that one. Sadly.
I mean, you can always talk about it, you know. And just
no, because it's gonna be fun when things happen. So just ignore what we just said, and we're me and Sasquatch are gonna talk about stuff a little bit more privately later. Yeah. Okay. So now that we've talked about all this, right? We need to talk about the whole accused thing. I look up at the higher levels with sadness. Time has made them arrogant and wretched towards those below them. Even as they make homes in their squalor, they berate any they see as lesser. Master has become one of these people and even started savagely beating his new hires, all in the name of showing how much power he has to anyone else. Once again, incentivized to use slaves. Because if you're keeping more and more profit, chances are your master probably lives up, maybe not in the guild, but close to the guild.
Yeah.
Like he probably has a shanty, you know, somewhere that he didn't have to carve out with his own, you know, hands or claws. But obviously he's not part of the guild, because if he was part of the guild, then he wouldn't have to answer to anybody. The guild being just below enforcer says volumes. Especially because if the guild gets roughed up too much, you end up with this situation where, since they're the quote-unquote link to the outside, they would be a bad representative. You don't want someone who's beaten, bloodied, and battered talking with outside people. But I digress. The living conditions have gotten worse. As more piles from above or falls from above, I had to add more supports to my carve so as to prevent it from collapsing on me whilst I slumber. Even as the stench of fermenting garbage fills the air, liquid methane drips down from above. So this from a story perspective is also interesting. So let's look at this from a world point of view, right? More trash at this current point in time starts showing up. And it's obvious that it's biological trash at that. So me and Sasquatch here were talking about a couple of things of stuff that might show up down in the trash pile. This is a show that something happened up top. Could this have been a war? Could this have been a giant scuffle? Could this have been an exodus or a Oh, I'm trying to remember what it's called when you basically remove a city from existence. Not a culling, it's a
The Grom?
Well, no.
You're culling a population by basically murdering it and destroying everything.
It's Oh, you're fine, love. Okay, see you soon. Oh, raising a town. It's called raising.
Raising, culling, same thing.
Culling is just the populace. Raising is when you actually burn all the structures to the ground as well. So when I say removing a town from existence, I actually mean like you're removing it from existence. That town just no longer exists, period. Yeah, it's a very different kind of situation when you raise a town. And not in the fun ways either. But I digress. Anyways, so yeah, something just for note for the future kind of situation. The idea of this was a turning point somewhere else in the world, and obviously Syndria wouldn't know that. You know, they just know that more trash piles showed up and stuff got dirtier. Stuff got mildly grimier. Okay. And do this so I can see what the fuck I'm doing in the game that I'm actually playing. There we go. All right. So, let's read a little bit farther. The years blur so far. I can't remember. Is it only been 1 year since I last wrote, or 1 decade? I can't remember. I found someone who talks to me. She comes every other week and hands out small scraps to the workers. I asked her name. Kelsora, she told me.
Kelsoria.
Kelsoria. Okay, I need to emphasize that I, or E sound, I guess. I feel renewed every time Kelsoria comes around. I can't describe the feeling. I wonder if this is something good. Kelsoria hasn't been by in months. I wonder if something was wrong. Last I saw her, she was nursing a healthy black, a hardy black eye and bruises on her arm. Which probably means that the guild came around, right? The guild came around, saw that she was doing something, and then dealt with the problem.
So she goes farther up. So in the story, she was going to be... Because I hadn't gotten to it yet. It was basically, she's the Baron's daughter. She doesn't like how the Baron is running things in the town. And is basically trying to run circles around the lords and the enforcers and whatnot. Her father doesn't like that. So he basically beats his daughter and tells her to stop doing shit.
Yeah, that somehow sounds about right.
Eventually was going to get to the point where he basically kills his own daughter. After discovering, like, she's, like, basically coming down and meeting with Sandria more often than not. Basically, she's finding comfort in the lower levels with me.
Well, which obviously, as
he can't have that.
Yeah, as a higher up Baron, he can't have that kind of shenanigan happening. So, which in its own right is fucked, but.
And basically, him killing his daughter was the turning point for me trying to find a way to leave.
Yep, but once again, we'll get there.
Yep.
So once again, we have some information here. Baron's daughter comes around, right? Is nursing some fresh wounds. Is trying to help the lower class. So once again, we need to go back to the idea of incentive. Why would people do this? Stuff like this. In this particular case, we have someone who's obviously a humanitarian, right? They're trying to do for the betterment of the people. And there's obviously some discourse with that, because why would there be discourse? Well, as we know, workers' rights don't necessarily equal rights for companies or big groups or stuff like this. AKA, in this particular case, the guild needs people to be hungry. If you're not hungry, you're not going to dig through trash. If you're not, homeless, you're not going to work for more money. There needs to be some kind of incentivization. And they basically saw this little girl as a threat. Because the moment she starts helping the lower class is more likely to actually enjoy that nicer living. Which means that they need to start, providing that nicer living. But if you keep people in the slums and you normalize slums, you incentivize the idea of, well, this is just normal. This is just how it is. And that's not what you want to do. In a proper society, you want to denormalize slum life and stuff like that as much as possible. But as we can see here, there's definitely some incentive not to do that, because by giving people that better life, you're telling them, oh, you don't have to work as hard. Oh, you don't have to do as much. So, yeah, this ironically does make sense. And it does actually work from both the storytelling perspective, but also from an overall thing. Because once again, remember, the Baron needs this stuff because someone's got something looming over him. Because otherwise, what does the Baron get out of it other than just more wealth? Don't get me wrong, more wealth is nice, but when you're kind of at the top, aside from staying at the top, or just blatant greed, there's no reason to keep pushing more and more and more, unless someone else has some kind of hold over you, or you're trying to prevent someone from getting a hold over you. I almost want to say, without spoiling too much, if we take one of our bad guys, right, and the Baron has some kind of disease, we can literally have these people giving him an antidote, like every time they visit, but the Baron has to fork over certain goods. So in this case, like oscillators, high-end Android parts, stuff like that, stuff that he would naturally collect, or force other people to collect, and he would be able to give up for said reconciliation, right?
Yeah.
Not only that, but it would also explain those oscillators we were talking about earlier, right? Because we were talking about those high-end oscillators that give the Quicksilver effect, the Quicksilver mutagen. If like, here's a question: it'd be one thing if you found like one or two of them, but Sandria openly points out, right, that hold on, this is just normal. This is a casual thing. We go in, it feels like no time has passed when we come out, despite the fact that there's obviously we've been down there for a while. So okay, I don't know how to remove stuff. Oh, there it is. Aha. So yeah, just one of those things where I'm kind of putting two and two together. And once again, this is something that we're trying to do. We're trying to flush out all this lore and make it something that's palatable. Ironically, it's going to also help me write this journal that I'm going to be writing here soon. So that this works out even more for the better. Okay, so into a new age, that's blank. As we are now, that's also blank. So I guess this is where we get to have a discussion and kind of work our way from there. So, as you were talking earlier, right? That was the Baron's daughter. The Baron's daughter obviously was nice enough to give you a bunch of goodies on the regular basis and was trying to make people's lives better. Now, we also discussed the fact that the Baron's under someone's thumb. So, if the Baron is under someone's thumb, it is very much a huge incentive, right, for him to keep people that way. Wouldn't it make also sense in this particular case that that would be the reason why he would be very much against his daughter in this particular setting?
A little bit.
Yeah, because it basically comes down to it's his life. If he doesn't get these people working, then he's potentially at risk of dying himself. Which, you know, any normal person would think rationally there of, hey, yeah, I don't want to die, so I'm not gonna let this happen. So we've got a hierarchy. We know Sandria stole something. Like that's something that we actually discussed back when the game first began. Was Sindria steals something, tries to get away with it, obviously does get away, because otherwise Sindria wouldn't be part of the body, or part of the party, right? And in being able to get away, you essentially screw over the Lord in some way, shape, or form. Now, I don't think we ever discussed what you got away with. That's just something that's always been kind of in the back of everything, correct?
Kind of.
Like
I want to say basically is like got away with basically butchering his arm off.
With what?
Not his like actual. So like his top enforcer or his top like trash lord. Basically, I gutted the trash lord in response to him killing his daughter, and then ran away.
I mean that's definitely one way that we can do this. Sorry, I'm sitting here trying to think. I can see vengeance definitely being a part of it. However, I feel like considering the circumstances, we want to add a little bit more to that. So, we know that you, quote unquote, stole an oscillator and sold that for safe passage. We already discussed that part, so cool. We're good with that. What's up, Lo?
Terry locked herself.
Oh.
She fucks with that knob so much.
Can you get in there, or?
Yeah, I've already been in there. It's better.
Okay.
She's like, dumb shit, you locked yourself in. Yeah, luckily, these are like really easy locks that you can open with like a quarter or something.
That's good. Okay, so Sindria obviously stole an oscillator. So that's one thing that we definitely want to kind of put out there immediately as soon as possible. We also want to say that Sindria probably stole some other stuff and hid it away. What would these other things be, is my question. Now, Sindria doesn't need to know the value of them. There's something I need to point out. But this gives us some opportunity to have this discussion. First off, probably something that would get Sindria into trouble later on. Obviously, if Sindria ever comes back. But something that the Trash Lord or the Trash Baron needs to keep himself upright. So, now that we've stated that, what would that look like? What would that be? What would be something so important that this would be a situation? So, Sasquatch, I'm gonna lean on you a little bit.
Okay.
So we were talking a little bit about the post-revolution diary, right?
Yep.
We were also potentially talking about the Alchemist's Son.
Yes.
What if this is the Son's journal, and this was his journal from when he was at the academy doing his... Oh, I can't remember what the story was, like 1986, 1970, I don't remember. It was like the weird government one. 1984.
There were a few weird government ones back then.
1984. It's a story similar to Fahrenheit 451.
Ah, yeah. Okay, how did the journal find its way down to the lower levels?
Because it went out with the trash.
Little on the nose, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But
I mean, at that point, why don't we just include a baby?
We
Since we're throwing out the bathwater.
We are. So, small spoilers
but this is an avocado baby.
Small spoilers for Demon here, so I apologize, Demon. So this was back when they were still trying to perfect the idea of making androids, right? They basically are trying to perfect the idea of transferring a brain to a fully automaton body, because obviously that's something that the Emperor wanted, right? So they start experimenting on some of the students and things like that. So in doing so, what better person than people who are trying to revolt against the country? Well, obviously this guy does not have any love for the Emperor because of what he did to his father, is willing to subvert the Emperor, and before the Emperor basically, ghosts him away, shouts him away, he literally throws the journal in the trash with the idea of, oh, well, I'll just grab it later, right? And I'll run away with it, providing I can get away with all this. If I can't grab it, then no harm, no foul, because guess what? I'm not going to be here. They don't know where it is. It's going to be thrown away. The Emperor will never find it. It's the simplest train of thought, but it ironically works really well for the situation. And yes, it still is a little on the nose. But, once again, I think in this particular case, it unironically works. What's your take on that, Demon?
Sorry, I zoned out halfway through.
Thanks. So,
what are we talking about again? No, something about Emperor trying to get a android body, using the students of the academy, and they revolted.
Well, no, they. So you guys haven't gotten this far in the Alchemist Journal. In later verses of the Alchemist Journal, what ends up happening is, the Alchemist kind of gets away, kind of doesn't. And the Emperor basically goes, okay, how about this? We'll open up a school, we'll start teaching people, we'll get, this all going. And then we're going to have people who know how to make these oscillators and all that, and we'll have a way to teach people to do the right thing with it. In truth, the Emperor is looking to just get people under his wing that he can control later, with the pretense of it for the normal people being, oh, well, education. Right.
Yeah.
Well, essentially a revolt ends up happening. The Alchemist literally ends up revolting against the Emperor along with several other people, and all hell breaks loose. However, his son is still at home. Now, with his son at home, the Alchemist is trying to make a better world for his son, and obviously fails. Son doesn't know this until much, much later in his life. Wife knows this, but at the same time just wants what's best for their child and sees an opportunity. Son eventually gets away from mother, goes to school, quite literally. Well, when he gets to school, he's basically trying to start up another revolution. He's trying to figure out what's going on. The problem is Big Brother's always watching. The Emperor obviously finds out that the son is there in town and sees this chance to get what he lost, right? To get this smart, able-bodied person, find out a bunch of secrets, maybe, get his plans back on track. But turns out the son obviously isn't on his side and isn't willing to just pander to him.
Yeah.
Well, the son writes a journal. The journal has a bunch of secrets. has a bunch of knowledge that the son already had because of who his dad was, but that the Emperor needs in order to complete his plans. And of course it ends up in the trash, as we just said, because the son was smart enough to go, well, I'll just throw it in the trash. If I come home tonight, I can pull it out of the trash. If I don't come home tonight, they'll never find it. It's just gone. They've lost. They lose. I win. Well, obviously, Sun doesn't come back. When he doesn't come back, these items, for lack of better terms, are just lost. Well, obviously, Sindria's not much of a reader, right?
Yeah.
So steals this book because it's got some shiny buttons and everything else on it. The shinies are attached to the book, so whatever. And then stashes the book away. Well, while someone finds out that Sindria stole this, aka our snitch, right? The Baron can't seem to find it. The Baron obviously punishes the snitch, but the Baron, having had this journal, having told the Emperor, hey, I've got this thing, I'm willing to make a trade, the Emperor comes down and goes, where is it? Oh, it got stolen. Well, then there's no trade.
You trying to tell me to steal the journal?
I'm saying you've already stolen the journal, you just didn't know it.
Do I
You
still have it in
stole
my
it-
possession, or did I sell it away or throw it away?
You put it away somewhere, probably in your carve, with the idea that it was something important, but aside from the shiny buttons on the front, the rest was just worthless to you. So you just kind of threw it somewhere around in your little carve.
I wouldn't put it in my carve because as soon as somebody either dies or leaves or moves away, somebody else comes into the carve and takes it over.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would put it somewhere where nobody would think to look
Well, no,
for it.
that's just it. You didn't know its actual value. It was just a bunch of lumps of paper and moldy leather. You took the buttons, though, because the buttons were shiny.
But I knew I took it from the Baron, though, right?
You took the book from the Baron. You thought he was after the shinies. So you stole the shinies, and then you threw the book away in your carve. Which very much sounds like a very Sindria thing to do. You cannot tell me that that does not sound like a very Sindria thing to do. Take what you think is valuable and then just throw the rest away.
No, because everything has valuable in the trash pile. Everything is valuable in the trash pile. It's just who sees value in it. If the Baron saw value in this moldy book, sure, I'll take the shiny gems, but I'll put the book somewhere where nobody will think to look for it.
Well, fair enough. So I guess there's the question is, where did you end up putting it? And that might be something that we discuss another time. But the idea is now we've got some solid story, right? And once again, Sindria has fled. Sindria is no longer there. And Sindria, we're obviously talking about Sindria coming back, which is once again something important. But the idea is the book is somewhere. It's just a matter of where is it, what's its actual importance, what's in the book, and can you get it back, as well as how is this going to end up with the actions that are about to transpire. So, if that makes any sense. Which I think, once again, this is good storytelling. This is world building. And just as to our namesake of the show that we are currently, broadcasting, this podcast, we have created a small world, known as a trash pile. We have created a hierarchy within this world. We know how everything works. We know how it extends to the outside world. we have a bunch of terms that are probably mostly used around here, but some terms that are probably used around the world, like Rabir, right? And we have an idea that there is, once again, an upper link that ties all this together in an important way. Because let's just be honest, if the Emperor had been kinder to the Baron, like if this wasn't stuff that the Baron needed to survive, he might not have killed his daughter. If he hadn't killed the daughter, Sindria would have had a happier life. It once again all comes full circle to the Emperor's an asshole. Not saying that that shit wouldn't have happened anyways, but you know. More of a line of thought than anything else. Okay, so is there anything else that we want to try and fill out while we have the opportunity?
As in for the trash pile, right, or no?
Yeah, specifically for the trash pile. I'm not worried about the game today. We'll get to that when we get to that. I'm literally more worried about the trash pile today. Like, is there anything else we want to kind of get through while we're talking about the trash pile? Because after this, now I have plenty of information. I should have no excuse as to why I can't just start going into this journal and really leaning into it. Because once again, this also goes straight back into the snitch as well. Because now that we know that the snitch saw this, why they were, you know, dismissed, and why this is all important, then yeah.
So, I'd think of it more like this. So, like, down at the bottom of the pile is where the oldest relics of war would have been found. So, basically, hence the start of the trash pile, the start of people scavenging for what would have been there. Is like basically like the start of any war conquest that would have been in the area. And then just refuse and everything else got piled on top of it, creating the first layer. And then
But see,
from
that
then on
doesn't actually
therefore...
make any sense. And here's why I'm going to say that doesn't make any sense. So, this world's obviously been a broken world for a long time, right? Well, here's the thing. If this world's been broken for a long time, that means that these refuse would have shown up long time ago as well, right? Well, refuse just pile up over a while. Now, don't get me wrong, probably in the bottom is some of the older stuff. I'll definitely agree with that. But older doesn't necessarily mean the best relics.
I mean, I meant more like, there is some good down there, but it's definitely a lot older than you'd want to use. But it still has, like, good, like, in a sense, archaeological value. In that sense, that like people are looking for that kind of stuff. As you get later into the trash pile, yes, there's more valuable stuff compacting, and then more valuable stuff compacting on top of that. But to people in the trash pile, it's all the same. It's all shiny. They just don't know what they're looking for, but their masters do. And basically, the masters then determine what value to give the items.
See, for me, I think of it, I guess slightly different. So, the trash pile probably started up before the Empire became what it is now. Now, we have mentioned in the journals that there were some automatons and some androids, but they were very basic, like in the Alchemist Journal, right? Now, we haven't said how far along back the Alchemist Journal was. I'm gonna go ahead and let you know now. It's been a hardy while. You guys are literally reading a manuscript that is probably older than all of your guys' characters combined.
Mm.
Yeah. Now, back then, the trash pile was probably more biological waste. So, fecal matter, old food waste, corpses, maybe some old weaponry and clothing, but I mean, while old magical weaponry and armor might be somewhat valuable, you're not talking like ancient relics, because no one's going to throw away your ancient relics at that point in time. They're going to try to preserve those as best they can unless it's broken. And if you've broken something enchanted, what the fuck did you do? For all intents and purposes, enchanted artifacts are supposed to be unbreakable. Literally. But I digress. So, moving away from that, right? Well, now we gotta talk about other things. There was a war. You know, there's probably been a couple wars that have happened over time. But Sindria specifically makes note that there's a lot of biological waste.
More or less just like the fermenting of garbage. So there is still garbage from, you know, rotted flesh, putrid filth, cooking flesh back in the first years. But now that she knows more, it's more just like the smelling of fermented garbage. Because most rotting things will perfume upwards. So even though she's like higher up, she can still smell everything from down below. But there's still like the issue with like the garbage piling on top, dripping down. You're picking up what I'm putting down.
No, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Well, to me, anyway. Blaze?
Like even before that is the peat mine. So you knew that there was biological waste because of the peat mines and whatnot.
Right.
So basically, it's just another one of the natural cycles of now there's more fermented garbage coming down. There's going to be a new peat mine opening up in the next 50 some odd years or so. Exactly. It takes a while for peat to coalesce into something burnable. It needs enough vegetation for it to amass before you can, you know, burn it. Blaze, you there? Have you died? Cough 3 times if you haven't.
There we go. Sorry, sometimes my mic doesn't connect properly. I've actually been talking this entire time. Haha. Because I actually started reciting from your journal.
You know, we didn't hear any of that.
Yep. Okay, I will go back over it again because I found the exact point I was trying to say because I was actually reading from the journal. There we go. Get myself out of danger because I'm going to be closing up this game here soon because we're kind of reaching the end of our stream. Okay, so the living conditions have gotten worse. The more piles above fall below. I have added more supports to my carve so as to prevent it from collapsing on whilst I slumber. Even as the stench of fermenting garbage fills the air, liquid methane drips down from above. So this means that something has been added to the garbage pile. So, something rotten has been added to the garbage pile, and is obviously biological. So
I mean, if
that
you're talking about like smell something rotten, you can get that from the smell of sulfur, which
Oh,
was
yeah,
described
no.
in the first years.
most definitely, but the fact that more and more seems to be piling up on top of Sindria's head specifically means that it's coming from above. Now, if Sindria is already a civilian, which I think we've already established at this point, this means that they are below the Trash Lords and the Guild. If they're under the Trash Lords and the Guild, this means that excuse me. This means that they're not above the normal trash heaps, but they're far enough up, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
This means that it's new trash, which means at some point, right, there is a chance that Sindria was actually there during a small war. Now, granted, when I say a small war, it might be between two baronies, not like a full-scale empire on empire thing. But I could definitely see, like, let's just be honest, a winning warband chopping up bodies, and rather than burying the dead the way they're supposed to, they just dump them over the edge of the island, and suddenly these cadavers are just gone. Left with the rest of the refuge and dirt and trash and everything else. Because, yeah, humans are not always great people. Actually, if we're being completely honest, humans are rarely good things. We are more than happy to be fucked up to our own.
We are. We really are.
But, even then, to Sindria, it's just more garbage, right? Someone threw more poop out there. Someone, dropped off this or that. Trying to make heads or tails of it in a world sense is kind of mine and Sasquatch's job, if we're being completely honest.
But there's at least 3 distinct map areas in the world. You have the trash pile, the peat mines, and the eternal burning lands.
Yeah. But on top of that, technically we've got more than just that. We have the peat mines, right?
I literally just said the peat mines.
Yep, the eternal burning lands. We agreed on that. But here's the thing, while we do have the trash pile, we also have this area above the trash pile that is where the trash lords, the guilds live. And then above that, we also have the Baron. So, what do we want to call the town, I guess, is a good question.
Refuse City.
When you said that, all I could think was Metrocity. Hi, Terry.
The Receptacle. Town's motto, as above, so below.
Jeez. Yeah, I'm really not sure. What do you think, Sasquatch? Like, does anything really come to your mind when you think of this stuff? Like, what would be good?
I'll probably need to grind on it for a bit.
That's fair. Obviously, I would say the Baron probably lives on Baron Hill. Probably some precariously built shanty that's, like, on the tippy top of, like, all the garbage. And it's got like little bits of scaffolding that have been so far buried in the garbage that they'll never be unburied.
No, but it would also need to stay fairly mobile so the Baron can keep moving it up as the pile grows.
Yeah. It's probably got like some built-in car jacks, right? So they literally, whenever he needs to like increase where it sits, he just like pumps up these jacks, puts some more struts underneath it, and then just like moves the jacks up back under the building itself.
Or it has like the pillars that go above the shack. So when he needs to expand it, he basically puts another pillar on top of the pillar, and then puts a rope pulley system to pull the entire setup up.
Jesus. I mean, that's an interesting idea too, but Jesus.
I mean, it makes more sense technologically for down there.
It really does, and it wouldn't be hard for them to keep adding to it. I mean, there's going to be enough scrap there that's going to work for that. All right, well, we'll mull over the name of the town, but overall, I think we've got most of our major information. And if anything, thanks, Demon, for coming this time around and sitting with us and actually talking with us about like how you think some of the storyline was. We obviously talked about your story specifically to kind of help flush this all out. Yep. Because that was dumb of me. Killed by bad decisions. Best death message ever. But yeah, we talked about your story in particular, trying to weasel out what bits of lore we actually could that made sense. And we definitely have a much better understanding of where Syndria comes from now, which is obviously very important. So what we need to do here in the future is me and Sasquatch need to sit and actually make the journal. The journal that's, for the time being, we're just going to call the Snitch Journal, because that's kind of what it is. It's the Snitch's journal. But
Stitch City.
It also gives me and Sasquatch a bit to work on with the rest of the world. So, for the sake of the series and its namesake, right? Let's go over a couple of quick pointers, and then we'll end for tonight. So, pointer number one. What part of the world is this? Well, this is definitely an undercroft of the world. This is a lower area where trash accumulates and is basically been just kind of thrown, right? It's literally a trash pile. Number two, what are key points in this area? Well, we've got the Eternal Burning Wastelands, which once again we've gone over and over and over again. We've got the Peatlands, which is where basically a lot of rot and decaying biological matter is generally pushed. Which means that it is sifted out from the normal garbage as best they can to be thrown in these peat mines so that they can keep growing peat. Then you've got the normal trash pile, which, while it does have some biological matter, is probably more leftover bits of lumber, leftover bits of metal, scrap, broken weapons, broken this, broken that. So technologically speaking, probably not super advanced unless you get lucky enough to find something like a laser rifle or something, right? Like maybe you got super lucky, you found a really cool gun that actually still works.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's garbage. And it's been garbage. And it will forever be garbage. On top of the garbage pile, obviously, sits the city. So the city is not necessarily separate from the garbage pile. It is a feature of the city is a feature of the garbage pile. And at the tip of it, we have Baron's Hill, where the Baron obviously sits and enjoys his own luxuries. So, have we nailed everything? Like, is that everything that we were thinking about? Is there anything else we need to go over?
Not at the current time, I'd say. There's definitely more areas we can like incorporate into the trash city, whatnot. That we could mull over. But
Yeah.
I don't know what I would add at this moment.
Well, we still have time until we get there, but from world building perspective, we have our locations, we have our key players, we know how the hierarchy actually works, which is Trash Baron, Trash Lord, Enforcer, the Guild, which deals with the outside world as well as the inside world. And then you have the Slave Masters, and then the Slaves / Civies. Slaves can become civies by matter of Rabir, and Rabir basically allows you the opportunity to buy back your bonds. You are literally buying your freedom. Aside from that, while there has been some civil service in the past, it seems like it's looked poorly upon and, if anything, kind of punished. I think that covers all bases. I'm 90% sure that covers all bases. So, yeah, unless you guys got something else to add, well, we can wrap it up here. So, to our audience, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Hopefully you guys had a fun time. This has definitely been a fun world-building experiment, to be sure. And I actually look forward very much to doing more in the future. But it's going to be interesting to see how these different things work. The other thing to remember is, while we are considering this a world in its own right, we also need to remember that it is a part of a much bigger entity, which is perfectly fine when you're building your own worlds. Building smaller worlds that fit into a bigger structure, honestly, in my personal opinion, is kind of a better way to build a world, because there are going to be isolated places, but they also play into the bigger grandeur of a much bigger entity. On that note, take care, stay safe, stay well, and just remember, don't eat from trash piles. If you can avoid it, if you have the financial backing and you can stabilize yourself, don't eat from trash piles. That shit's gross. All right.
Night all.
Good night. Take care.
Let's
Gesundheit.
chill.
Bleh. Bleh.
Let's chill.
Yeah.
Bleh. Bleh.
Let's chill.